Excel, popular Excel functions that you would need in your work, and that you need knowledge of to get through interviews. And this is going to be more of like an intermediate Excel session. So we're not going to be doing like the basic Excel based on the assumption that a lot of people are already above the basic Excel level. I would share my screen. Before I share my screen, I'm going to put I'm going to put an Excel document in the chat. I'm just trying to send a document in the chat. So if you can download the file I've just put in the chat, that's the first file we're going to be using. Can you let me know if you can see the file? And I know some people will probably be on Telegram. If you can send it, someone can send it to the Telegram group as well. That would be good for people who haven't joined. And then they can have access to the file. And I'm going to share my screen in a minute. Okay. Can I check that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah. So the first thing we're going to be looking at today is tables and creating a pivot from a table. So that's the very first thing we're going to start with. Any organization you're in, you're going to work with data. And a good way of summarizing data is putting the data in a pivot table. So you might have like a presentation you're doing that you need like to put a summary on your slide. And you can do that very well by using a pivot table. So we have a basic data here. It has this is data from a sales system. And this shop, they sell different elements, bike, skateboard, is like a sports shop. They have different salespeople on column F. They have their sale dates, column A, order ID, products, unit, sale, and you have the region. And you have all this data, and you want to summarize this data, basically. But before we go on the summary, before we start the pivots, I'm just going to show a couple of ways that we can summarize this data. The first thing we want to do is put a filter on this data. So for instance, you want to know how Davis is performing on this data. Davis is one of your salespeople. So the first thing we'll do, these controls are blocking my screen. Okay. I'm just going to hide this. Yeah. Okay. Is click anywhere on the data and go to your data and click your filter. When you click your filter, if you notice, there are now arrows on the headers. So this is basically applying a filter to your data. And when you click on the arrow, you can see everyone listed under the first name. So it shows you a snapshot of the names. We only have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people here. So at first glance, you can see that you only have 7 people here. You can have much more than that. Your data can be more than this. But if it's limited, you can actually use your filters to do a couple of things on your data. So we're looking for Davis, how Davis is doing, what Davis has sold. So I will check select all to unselect everything. And then I will select Davis and OK. And then what it has done is filtered all the others out and it's showing you only Davis. If I want to see everyone again, I can go back to the filter. I can either clear filter from first name, and then you have your old data again. I'll undo that. Another way to clear the filter is to go to clear here and clear the filter. If you have different filters on this on your table, so for instance, if we filtered by skateboard, okay, I will now filter by Davis, for instance, okay. So we know that Davis has only 2 rows of skateboard in this data. If you want to clear the filter, if you have lots of filters and you want to clear them all at once, the best way to do it is to click on clear here, and then you can clear your filter all at once. If you only want to clear filter in a particular column, then you need to go to that column and clear the filter. Otherwise, if you use clear, it clears the filter from the old data. So if I do clear here, it clears the old filter. If I undo, and I just want to clear the filter on name, if I clear this, then I still have my filter on product. I'm going to clear all the filters now. We want to summarize this data, and we want to add up the sales by names. You can use a subtotal to add this up. And I'm going to say this. Let's see, where's my... So I'm using a different Excel. Depending on the Excel version you're using, sometimes, you might have to look for the function you want to use. Because this new one, I'm not sure what version this is. This is a new one I'm using. So a lot of the functions that you would see, they are now like icons. So I'm just going to check where the subtotal is. Where my subtotal? Okay. Cancel. So I want to add this by, for instance, I want to add it by names. The first thing you want to do is you want to sort out your data. This data I'm looking at is already sorted by first name, but I want to add by skateboard. So the first thing you're going to do is go to the filter button on your product and sort A to Z. When you're sorting data, always make sure that if you have a filter on, you have filter on your old data. Otherwise, there's a risk that you sort part of the data. And if you sort part of the data, then that means you've corrupted the data. So you have to make sure that you are sorting everything before you use your sort function. So what I've done is I've sorted by bike, and I want to add the sales for the products one by one. So I want to use the subtotal function to do that. So I will go to subtotal, And then the subtotal comes up with a dialog box. And it's going to ask me what I want to add together and what function I want to use. For this one, I want to add the sales figure. That's what I want to add. And I want to add it per product. The first option here is at each change in, so because I've sorted my data, every time the product changes, I want a total. So I'm going to say at each change in product. The next one is use function. What function do you want to use? I don't want a count, I want a sum. So I'm going to put a sum. If I want to count it, then you put a count. But I want to sum this. And it's going to ask me, where do I want the sum applied to? So add subtotal to, I want to apply the subtotal to sales, my sales figure, not my region. And okay. When you click OK, I'm going to go down. We have a lot of bikes. What it has done is it would go down the list. When the product changes to another product, in between, it would add a subtotal. So it's added a subtotal for my products. For every product category, it's added a subtotal. So I have my bike total, I have my skateboard total, I have my snowboard total. I only have 3 products here. And it's grouped them. So if you look at the side, these are groupings. So the full list is 3. If I go to 2, it would only show me, it will collapse the other bit and show me just the subtotal. And if I go to 1, it will give me the grand total. So what it's done is it's done like 2 things in one. It has helped you to group this data, and it has applied subtotal. So that is how you use subtotal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to undo everything I've done so that we can start looking at pivot tables. So I'm going to just undo this, the subtotal. So I'm back to my data. To apply a pivot table to a data, your data must have headers. So every column in your data must have headers. If there's no header, then your pivots will not work. The first thing is select your data. I'm going to select this data all the way down. Make sure you select everything. You can select by doing Control A, or you can select the first row and just do your Shift and Control button plus your down button to select everything all the way down. So your Control, Shift, and the down arrow button will select everything down. And then I'll go to Insert, Pivot Table. So when you click on Pivot Table, it comes up with a dialog box. It would ask you what you want. You've already selected your table, your data. So it would come selected here. If you need to change that, then you change it in this space here. And then it will ask you where you want to put your pivot table. Is it in a new worksheet? In which case, it would open a new tab for you and put the pivot there. Or is it in an existing worksheet? For this one, I will put it in, I would normally use a new worksheet, but so that we can see the data and the pivot side by side, I will choose an existing worksheet. And then it will ask you, where do you want it? So you need to put a location. I'm just going to click here and okay. And this is my blank pivot table. So it will come up with a blank pivot table, waiting for you to add your headers to it, how you want to filter how you want to filter your data, how you want to summarize your data. It's going to come up with a blank pivot table. And please, while we're going on, if you have any questions, if you put them in the chat, then I would be looking at the chat from time to time. I hope you can still hear me. I can't seem to.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, okay. Because I can't seem to see any control or anything. Okay. Yeah, I'll put the control buttons here. Yeah, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. So we have a blank pivot here. And how do we want to filter this? Should we start with region? Let's see if we can get sales by region. We have a couple of region. So someone sent a question, what is a pivot table? So, which is what we're doing now. A pivot table is just a table that you use to summarize data. So you just use it to summarize data. And from a pivot table, you can derive some charts as well, but we'll get there. So we have our blank pivot. So this is the table and it's asking us to put stuff in. So the first thing I want to put in, I want to put in my region. So we've got region. I'm going to drag my region and put it on the row. I want my region on the row. Can you see what has happened to these pivots? It has brought in my regions and I've got only 4 regions here. If you click on this drop down arrow, you will see that we only have 4 regions. And then I want the sales by region. I want the total sales by region. So what do? I drag my sales. This is my sales. I drag it on the values. And before we even go far, if you look at this box in here, you would notice that it has all our headers. That is what you have in this box here. And these are the options that you will use to set up your table. So you can chop it and dice it anyhow you want by, selecting different elements of the table. So what we have done is we have basically summarized by region. And our grand total is 645,100. That's our total sales. Let's see if it matches our table. So if I look at our table and select the sales all the way down, if you look at my sum box here, just below, you'll see that it's 645,100. So that shows that my pivots, I've selected my full data for this pivot. And it's always good to check because sometimes you might think that you've selected the old data and you haven't. So it's good to spot check and just make sure that what you have on your pivot is what you expect to have. So I've got my sales. In what way can we cut up this, can we summarize this data? If we have salespeople, for instance, and we want to pay them like a surplus based on their sales, how do you think we should summarize this data using these pivots? Is anyone following us?
By unit?
Do we have units? Okay, so the units they've sold, right? By units and what? So we want to pay the salespeople. We want to give them a bonus based on the number of units they've sold. What do we need on our pivot?
We need the first name.
We need the name.
Units.
Yes, we need the first name. Thank you. And
the units.
And we need the units. Okay. So instead of region here, let's put first name. I'm going to drag first name here. I'm going to take off region. And we want units, right? So let's do units. And I'm going to take off sales. So we have the number of units that they've sold, and we have the salespeople. So if...
Sorry, ma, I have a question, ma.
Yes, please. Sorry,
I noticed that it's on the same plane. Let me just paint that we are bringing in all these should I call it not filters actually, to create another chart.
Yeah.
Is it not possible to have it in an app so as to be able to retain the earlier one that we have done?
Yeah,
or...
you can create as many pivots as you like.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So like what we've just done, if we want to have it on another, I can just copy these pivots. So I'll undo I'm just going to undo this. So if you want to have it somewhere else, you can copy your pivot. So if you copy the pivots, just select everything.
Okay.
All you need to do is file. No, sorry. Copy. I'm going to place it here. I'm going to place it by the side here, and I'm going to paste it. And then you have your another pivot. So this is a pivot. This is another one. So if we want to change the second one, I would go to my pivot table, analyze, and that's my field list by the side. So I click the field list and I have the field list. So we can now change this one to, so we can have first name and then we want units, right? For this one. So I'm taking off sale. Can you see that?
Okay.
So depending on the number of tables you want, you can copy and paste. So while we're still working on this, so we have this, we have the region, we have the salespeople, we have the units. So assuming that, we said they're going to get a bonus based on what they sell, right? So assuming that the bonus varies by region. So if you sell 10 items in Atlantic, let's assume that every item you sell in Atlantic earns you £100. But in Northeast, every item you sell earns you maybe £200. So we need the region as well as a salesperson here. How do we have that in? What do we need to add in?
The region.
Region, the first name.
On the first name.
Region and the first name. And how do we do that?
The region will be on the rows.
So put the region on the rows.
The first name also on the rows.
Okay.
And then the sales on the value.
And the units. Let's use unit.
Okay.
Yeah, we can use units. We can use So if we're saying it's per unit, then if it's per the value of sales, then that would determine what we would do. I'm just gonna delete this for now, and then let's focus on this. So this pivot, we have Andrews, then we have not the region under Andrew, then we have Benson, and we have the region. We can also move it in a different way. So if we have like the region first, let's try the region first, and then the first name. So what I'll do, I'll put the region before the first name. And can you see what has happened? It's first sorted by the region, and then we have then the names, and then the units. There is I'm going to close the field for now. If you right click on this pivot and go to pivot table options, I'm going to put this by the side. There are a couple of options you can use, for your pivots. And the first thing I like to do on my pivots is I go to the display and I pick the classic pivot table layout. And that's because it makes your pivot table more flexible. And then I click OK. Did you notice what happened? So instead of having the region and the first name in the same column, is now split it out. So I have the first column for region, I have the next column first name, and then I have the number of units. I'm going to undo that and then do it again. Right click, pivot table options, display, classic pivot table layout and okay. And when you have this classic layout, you can actually drag things around. So these are the items in our row. If I want to change it back to first name first and then the region they're operating, I can click on the first name here and literally I can just drag it to before region. And then I have it in this way again. I hope that is clear.
Yes.
If we are doing some analysis and we want to see what product sells more in the different regions. So we're trying to control our stock, and we want to know what product should we be sending to what region. So we want to know the highest selling product per region. What do we do? I'm going to go back and bring up a field list. And in this case, we only want the region, and we want to see the products we sell per region and the highest selling products per region. If we go to, how many products have we got? Let's say, I'm going to take off, so unit will still be there. Let's leave our region. I'm going to take off first name. Let's use the column. Let's use our product. Let's put our products on the column. So we have 3 products. So A to Z. So what we've done is we've grouped by region and we have our products. So if we look at Atlantic, for instance, our highest selling product in Atlantic is a skateboard. Let's sort by data. Let's go to sort. In Northeast, our highest selling product is a skateboard as well. And in the Southwest, we sell more snowboards. If, for instance, we don't want to have a total on the table, maybe for some reason we don't want to have a total, we can go to our pivot table options. If you click on data, if you click on totals and filters, I'm going to move this to the side so we can see. There are 2 options here. The first one is show grand total for rows. Do we want total for row? Or do we want total for column? It would default to totals for both of them. But if we don't want totals, if I uncheck the rows, for instance, and okay, my total for row has disappeared. So I only have totals for the different products. If I go back and right click and go to totals and uncheck grand total for column, okay, then my total for column has disappeared as well. So let me change this around again and let's add salespeople. Let's add first name to this and see what they are selling per region and the product they're selling. So I've got, under Atlantic, I've got a number of salespeople. If you notice, you have Atlantic here, and then because every other person is under Atlantic, it doesn't repeat Atlantic in these cells, even though that is Atlantic, but it does not repeat it. Sometimes you might have some formula you're doing or some analysis you're doing that you want this to be repeated, and you want not is to be repeated. You don't want any blank cell. So if you go to your field setting, that's on the cell you want repeated. If you go to layout and print, there's an option here that says repeat item labels. So if you check that and okay, it would repeat whatever you have on the side. And sometimes it's good because you might want to differentiate, or maybe when you have like a long pivot and you are scrolling and you've scrolled past the first one and you don't know what is by the side. So you can use that option to ensure that those names are repeated by the side. What else can we do with this pivot? So let's see, let's move this around. Again, let's move the first name back to the top. And if we move we can move the products down here. So I've got the first name first, then I've got the region, I've got products and the total units. If you look at this, I've got not is and not is total. It would default to putting a total, but I don't want a total in this region bit here. So you can right click and go to field settings. And then subtotal, it defaults to automatic. It would put a subtotal. Because for pivot, it's assuming it's a summary. So it would default to put in a total. But I think my pivot will look better without a total on the region. So if I click none here and okay, and then that total will disappear, which this looks better than what I have before. If we move the region to column, for instance, let's see what it looks like. So we have the region. So depending on what you want to do and how you want your data to look, you can actually move it around until you achieve the aim for that analysis that you're doing. So there's no right or wrong way to do a pivot. It all depends on what you're doing and what you want to achieve. The main thing is just that it helps you to summarize your data. If I take off the first name, and then I've got the products and the region on the column. If I change this back and put the products here, and then I have it like this. Other things we can do with this pivot is, from this pivot, we can create charts. If we go to pivot table analyze, this function here, so anything you need to do on your pivots, if you go to your pivot table analyze, you can do different things. Let's create a pivot chart. So I will click on a pivot chart. And what a pivot chart does, it would add a chart to your data, which is being driven from the data in your table. So let's just put a simple chart. Let's put a simple column chart. So that's a column chart, okay? And this is our chart here. So it gives you a simple chart based on your pivots. If we move this pivot around, field list, if we want to, so we'll probably, maybe if we want products here, and we want region here. And then we have that. if instead of products, we want to see a best performing, I don't want products. Where is our salespeople, how they are performing? So if you look at this, you will see that, you know, it's so, when you add a chart to your pivot, it's so easy to see your data. You know, your data is clearer. If you look at this, even though if you look at this table, it's not so clear. You have to really look at it to see, you know, the performance of the different salespeople. But if we look at this chart here, you can see what the different people, how the different people are performing. So can we calculate in percentage? Yes, we can do percent. We can do percentage. If we use a pie chart, for instance, it will give you like a percentage of the whole. So if I change this table, this pivot to something simpler, for instance, let's do, okay, I'll take your questions one at a time. So for instance, if we want to do like let me add a pie chart instead of a column chart. But for a pie chart, it has to be like a percentage of a whole. So before that, I'll make this table simpler. And if we have like, so if I don't have region, let me take off region. I'm just gonna take off region to make the table simpler. Region. And then we have the salespeople. So this is a chart. I'm just gonna change. I'm gonna change the chart. Pivot chart analyze. I'm gonna change chart. Where's my? I'm not moving chart. I need to change this chart. Design. Yeah, change chart type. So I want to change this chart type to pie. Let's do pie. Okay. So pie will give you percentage. Let's see something with yeah. So you can do something like this, and this will give you percentage of, you know, the salespeople. And what we can do again is you can actually insert a calculated field in your pivot table, if you want to calculate percentage, or you can calculate the percentage by the side. So depending on what you want to do. So if I want to calculate percentage, I'm not sure what percentage you want, but it depends on what. Okay, so for this one, if we have a total, I'm going to add back total, field list, field setting, field setting, automatic. Okay, pivot table options. Let me add. I want total, grand total for columns. I want column. Let me do column. So percentage, if I want to calculate percentage, it can just be a manual calculation that you do by the side, divided by your total and percentage. And we are going to do how to freeze cells soon. So if I do this, if you look at what we have here, Andrew is 3%, that's the 3%. Benson is 8. 30%, Park is 30%, that is it. So you can use a chart to actually calculate percentage depending on what you're doing. Someone wanted us to, can you go back one step? How we went from the pivot to the graph. Okay, I'll delete this. I'm going to delete the chart. So once you create your pivot, we can create a chart from this pivot. So all you need to do is go to your pivot table, analyze, and then you see this function here that says pivot chart. So if I click on pivot chart, if we take a column chart, okay, this is what it gives us. And you can change the chart type by going to pivot chart, analyze, and design. You can change chart type. You can change to, let's change it to line, for instance. And that is what you have. So it's design, or it's insert our pivot chart. I'll go back to, let's go back to Pi. Pi makes more sense for this type of data. I hope that is clear.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
it's not clear. What exactly is not clear?
the diagram.
The chart.
Yes.
Okay. Is it how to create the chart?
Yes.
So you're okay with creating the pivot?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have your pivot created, and you go to your pivot table option, pivot table analyze here. Once you click your pivot table analyze, it comes up with, options that you can use for your pivot table. There's a pivot chart here. All you need to do is click on the pivot chart. Your data is already selected. So if you are creating a pivot chart from scratch, you have to select your data. But because we already have this pivot, so we already have the data as part of the pivot, you can easily create a pivot chart just by selecting that pivot chart button. And let's start with column chart or Pi, and okay. And this is your chart. I'm going to move it to the side. Is that clear?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so it's just a click of a button to create your chart. Some do's and don'ts for pivots. So I'll move this to the side. I'm going to delete this pivot table. And I'm going to delete the pivot chart. So we have our data here. Let's see what happens. If you remember, before we started, I said your data, you must have headers on all your data. Otherwise, you cannot create your pivot. If we delete this unit, for instance, that header there, and we try and create a pivot. Let's say insert pivot table. So it comes up with the pivot table dialog box. We've selected our data, which is that, and we want it in an existing worksheet. And I want to place it here. And okay. So it comes up with an error. And it's going to tell you that your pivot table field name is not valid. So when you have this type of error, because sometimes this data is quite small, sometimes you select all the way down, and sometimes you might be working with like a sheet that has some hidden columns, and those hidden columns might not have headers. So when you have this type of error, when it pops up, you would know that one of your columns, you don't have a header in all your columns. Even if you don't need that column, if it's as long as you've selected it as part of your table, as part of your data for the pivots, you have to have a header on your data. So for this, so I will put this units back. Oh no, cancel. I'm going to put units back here. And then we'll do that again. Insert, pivot table. We want it in an existing worksheet. I want it here. And okay. And then you have your pivot. So anytime you have that kind of error, then you need to check your errors. I'm going to go back to the field list. I'm going to create another, let's recreate pivots. Let's do cells this time around. And I'm going to format my cells. Okay. So this is our pivot. Another thing you can't do as part of your pivot is you can't change the items. You can't change this. So I'm trying to type over this, but it won't let me. And that's because your pivot does not have data on its own. It's taking the data from somewhere else. So if you need to change anything on the pivots, you have to change the source data. You can't change the pivots. But what you can change is you can change the labels. So I can change this to region. And then I can probably change this to, well, if I want sales, it already exists. Let's say total sales. Let's see if it will let me. Yeah. But you can't change any of this item. You can't like, cannot enter, no. Okay, let's see. That was Atlantic. Let's see. So Excel has evolved. That was Atlantic. Normally, on the old Excel, it won't let you change this, Atlantic. It won't let you change that because it's taking, the data is coming from somewhere else. But it did let me change this, which is good. So it's getting more flexible. But it won't let you change the values because it's derived from somewhere else. So I guess it now lets you change the name, but not the values. Okay, let's see, what else can we, let me change this to, we can also now add a filter to this pivot.
Please, can I ask a question?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yes, so when you did the charts, the column charts with different columns here, it was pretty straightforward. Can you do different columns on the pie chart as well? Because when we did the pie chart, it was just 2 columns and it was it looked like a simple version. If we had different columns, so like region, total sales, and we add other columns like maybe first name and product to it, can we still achieve that with a pie chart?
No, a pie chart, the way a pie chart works is like, if you imagine like an orange and you're cutting it into different parts, you can only, there's a limit to how you can cut it. So it looks at 100% and cuts it based on that. So you can, if you're going to do a chart using different columns, you are not going to use a pie chart. You would have to use one of the other charts. You have to use like a column chart. So it won't work for your pie chart. So a pie chart is just to like show you this is like a total 100%, and these are the parts to it, to the 100%. So it won't work for a pie. It won't work for a pie chart. You have to use like a column.
All right, thank you.
Please, can I say something?
Yes, please.
So I don't know, it's just an observation. The way you are doing it, I am thinking if you can do it in such a way that you should generate a story for this class. Maybe as it is now, we want to work on generate the story on okay, let us know the region that have the highest sales, blah, 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 like that. But the way you are doing it, it is so that it won't be confusing anyway. maybe we should be creating different pivots for each of these things.
Also, you want to see the different pivots on the screen?
Yes, that's
Okay.
what I'm doing. So for easy learning and so that won't be lost. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I can do that. So if you're lost, just let me know. The reason why I'm not doing different ones is because the screen is limited. So I want you to see the changes, how one can change to the other, not create a new one. Because when you're working with pivots, you're going to be changing it until you achieve what you want to see. So creating a new one every time will not show you how to change a pivot from one to the other. So it's just creating a fresh one from the start. And it is much more flexible than that. You can actually change it. Because when you're working, you're not going to be creating like different pivots. You need one pivot, but you need to change it to what you want. Yes, you might be doing something that you need different pivots. But I can put all the pivots here so we can start creating new pivots. But if in actual situations, you would want to like change that your pivots until you get what you want.
Sorry. Do you mind if I suggest maybe a process or something?
Yeah.
For my understanding. So is it possible for us to, first of all, generate this pivot in a different page?
Yeah.
Right? If
Yeah.
you generate on the different page, right, we can now duplicate the generated page, right? So that if we change the data on the page 3, for example, the pivot table on page 2 still remains, right? And the pivot table on page 3 is different. Because sometimes you may need to create maybe different visualizations using the same database. Do you understand? For different things. Why not deleting one?
Yeah, you can do that as well.
Yeah, so that we don't clutter.
Even if it's on the same page, it will not change because there are different pivots. They are all linked to the same data, but it won't change. So if you do a copy of this, for instance, and paste it here, and we change this to, let's put products here. So that's a different pivot. So you have your different pivots and it's not going to change. So this is the first one, and this is the other one.
Okay, no problem. Just thought to make it easier in the page level so that it doesn't become cluttered. That's all, no problem.
I wanted to show you, what was I going to do? Yeah, filters. That was what I was going to go to. Let's look at filters. I'm going to copy this. And then let's put it on another tab as you suggested. And then this is another pivot. Let me put the products here. Let's take off the region, or probably let's do first name. Let's do first name. Or maybe product first. So I have first name, I have a region here. I'm going to change it, the display to the classic. So I can drag this around. If I move products here, then I have the different products and the different names. One thing I can attach to this pivot is a slicer, and which is another way to filter. I'm going to close the field here. If you go to your pivot table analyze and insert slicer. So what a slicer does is you can use it to slice and filter this pivot. So I've got a slicer by the side. Let's assume I just want let me change this to I've got just the names. Let me take off the products and insert slicer. So if I slice by products, okay. So I've got the salespeople here. Even though I don't have products on my pivots, I can still filter by the products using a slicer. I can also filter on this side, or I can use the filter box here, but I will get to that. So I want to filter by, I only want skateboard. I've got salespeople. I only want to see the total for skateboard. If I select skateboard, for instance, you can see that this total has changed. And that's because I've only selected skateboard. I only want to see the total for skateboard. If I select bike, I want to see the total for the bike. That's 266,000. If I select snowboard, I have 181,000. So this works like it's just a filter that you have by the side. And if you want to clear the filter, if you click this button here, it clears the filter. I'm going to delete the filter. One other thing you can use to filter is you can actually filter on your pivot here. So you can insert filters. So if we want to use the region as a filter, I can drag my region to the filter box here. And it defaults to all. I can select multiple. Let's filter by just Northeast. So we'll filter the others out, and we only have Northeast here, which is 145,500. To check that this works, I'm going to copy this and put it by the side. And I'm going to change this to, I'm going to remove the name. I just want a region here. I want all the region clear from filter, okay? So if you filter by Northeast here, and Northeast is a total of 145,500. Can you see that on the side? This is a Northeast is 145,500. So anywhere you cut it, you should your totals should be consistent. I've got a Pacific, let's say, Pacific is 164,400. So you can either add your filters in here, in the box under filters, and then you use your filter. You can use a slicer as your filter as well. And anything you do, just always check that, you know, your total is what you expect it to be. So that is pivots. Do we have any other questions on pivots?
Please, where's the icon for the slicer?
If you click on your pivot table analyze. So to get your pivot table functions, always click on the pivot table first, and then you'll see your pivot table analyze. And then we have the slicer here. So if you click on slide, okay, insert slicer, and we want to filter this by, let's say, first name, okay? And then I have the first names, and you can select as you wish. Is that clear?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I said by clicking the names, each of the names, it should be giving us the subtotal.
Yeah, it's just giving you the total depending on what you've picked on your pivot. So it's just a plain filter. So that's Andrew's. And that is slicers. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at charts. So I sent this data to you. This data. So if you can play around with it, create your pivots, you know, chop and dice it the way you want, and just have a feel of what it does. And then if there are any questions, I would take them next week when we come back. So you have the data and you have the plain data. Please put your filter, put a subtotal, try your subtotal, try creating your pivots, try creating your pivot charts, put your slicers, and then just see. And it's quite easy to do. The next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing charts. I'm going to put another data in the chart before I open it. Okay, let me see. I'm just going to stop sharing and then share the new one. Share screen. Charts. Okay. Can you see a change screen? I've put the data for the chart for the charts in the chart. So let me know if you have it.
You mean the data, the Excel data?
Yeah, the Excel data. I just put a new data.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay, yeah, we've seen it.
Okay. For this session, we're going to be looking at creating different charts from data. I know we created a pivot chart from the previous one, but this one we're going to create in different charts from data, and this is just simple data. A chart. Did someone say something? Okay. So the first.
Please. Can you mute your mic if you're not talking, please?
Let's see if we can mute.
I'll mute them, don't worry.
Mute. Okay. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So column charts. Well, once we go along, you see what they all look like. And a chart is actually very useful, especially when you're doing like presentation. It's always better to use charts as against data, because you can actually see what is happening with a quick glance, rather than using like a whole load of numbers. If you have your data and you want to create charts, the first thing you need to do is you need to select the data you're using. In this case, we have this data for ABC company, and this is let's assume their sales value for the month of January to March. and we want to create a data, we want to see how they are performing, how these areas are performing. The first thing I would do is select. Don't forget that a chart also is a summary of your data. So I will select my data, and then I will go to insert. The first one I'm putting on here is going to be the column chart. So I would insert my column charts, recommended charts, all charts. And the first one I want to use is column. And once you click on your column, you have an idea of what your charts will look like. And I'm picking the first one here. We can change it to different ones later. And okay, just move it here. So what I have here is a column chart, and it's just basically showing you what you have sold per region, per month. When you have charts, you can have your chart title, and you can put whatever, whatever is applicable here. For this one, I'll probably, let me put sales of grocery. Let's assume sales of tomatoes. Let's say tomatoes. Okay. And if you notice, we have some set colors in the chart, and a lot of organizations, they have their own colors. They have their own colors that they use. So you can actually look for colors that would fit your organization style by changing the attributes of this chart. So let's see. So if you select the chart and click here on change colors, if you go to change colors, there are some set color groups that are here. Unfortunately, you cannot pick individual colors, but you can change a group of colors. So the first one it defaults to, there's this colorful one here. And it will just pick the color based on your data. If, for instance, your organization, maybe your theme, your logo is more like maybe something like green, let's say. If we click this green, and that is what you have. So you can choose something that is closer to your organization's color in your chart, depending on what you're doing. And if it doesn't really matter, you can choose any color you like, really. Let's choose this one. And you can also change this type of, the design of the chart. So once you click on the chart, you have different options at the top here. And the good thing is, once you put your mouse on it, you can see what it would look like when you change it to that. So you don't have to really click on it before you know what it's going to look like. And then we have these ones with the dark background. Let's go back. Let's go to this one. Okay. And you can also, let's change the chart type. So we've got this one. We can change it to, there are different types of column charts. So we have the stacked, that's 100% stacked. So depending on what you want it to look like, you can pick what you want. This is a clustered chart. What you can also put here, I'm just gonna move this a bit. You can change the position of your legend. So this is your legend. So you can move it down. If you select it, you can move it down. You can decide to take off your legend if you don't want the legend there. If you uncheck here, it takes it off. If it doesn't have a legend and you want a legend there, you can put a legend here. If you don't want a chart title, you can take it off or back on. I'm just going to undo that because I'm not typing that again. So we have another legend here. So that's the legend. I want to move the legend down. I'm moving the legend down there. So you can change the color by the side here as well. Aside from using change colors here, you can change by the side. You can change your data by select data here. If you don't want to see some, for instance, if you don't want to see, you want to filter some data out, if you uncheck north, for instance, what has that done? So I want south, east, and west. Why is that not working? Oh, I know why it's not working. I did not apply it. So you can actually filter by the side. So what I did now was take north off and then apply. And then I can only see south, east, and west, even though north is part of our data, but we filtered it out. Maybe we don't want to see north for this particular chart. If you want to see your data that you've selected, you can click on select data. That's from here, select data. And then you have your data. You can switch the row and column. If we click switch row and column, okay. So we have the months now here, and then we have the region as a legend. If I undo that, and then you can see that these are now the months, and then we have the region here on our x-axis. What else can we do? I'm gonna select all and apply. So we have everything back. So this is a column chart. And it's the same way you would create all your other charts. If we want to create a line chart, let's create another chart. I mean, for people who want to see this on different tabs, so you can actually put this next chart on a different tab. So if you want to create a line chart, it would be insert. This is our line chart, but we can go through the dialog box. No pivot chart. Insert chart, all charts, and we want to do a line chart. Let's look at this one. Okay. I'm gonna move it to the side. This is a line chart. It works the same way as the column charts. You can change the colors. Let's change it. You can change the colors. Let's look at this. That's called dull. You can put your chart title. You can change your legend. It works exactly the same way. And if you want to move from one chart to the other, you can, instead of creating a new chart, you can go and you can change the chart type. Change chart type. And then you can pick any of the other charts. Pie chart, we looked at pie chart earlier, and pie chart is basically we need a simpler data for pie chart. So if you want to create a pie chart, we need something that we can cut, you know, from 100%. So if I select this, for instance, and do an insert pie chart. Let's look at this pie chart. If we change it to the one with the percentage, it's always better. The percentages make it look better because you actually see what is happening. You actually understand the data better, especially when the cuts are very close to one another, so you can see which one is more. So we have 18% sales in West, 36% in South, and we have 17 in Canada. And this is just January. If we're looking at, if we want to change our data, so we have January here. If we want to change it to February, for instance, let's select our data. And instead of January, let's do North and February. Okay. And then this is February. You can also change your data by clicking on it. And once you click on your chart, you can see it will show the data it's picking. So if we don't want February, if we want to move this to March, you can literally just drag it to March, and then we have the data. So there are different ways to like select and change your data. There are other forms of pie charts, which are the extended ones, which look quite nice. And they have the pie of a pie and the bar of a pie. Give me just 1 minute. So we can change the data anyhow we want, as in you can literally just move it around. So the other one I wanted to show you was pie of a pie and bar of a pie. And I'm going to, so if we select, we're going to create another chart. If we select this and go to insert, I'll go to recommended charts, all charts. I'll go to pie, and this is pie of a pie. And okay. I'm just going to move that to the side here. So this is what pie of a pie looks like. What is done is it's actually like put a pie beside the pie. And let's see if we actually pick the one with the names. Something with the names, okay. I'll drag it, make this bigger so there's more space. So this is a pie of a pie. If you want to like, select or like maybe emphasize a part of the pie, you can literally just drag it and drag it. No, I've dragged everything out. I'm just gonna undo this. Let's see. No. It's dragging everything. Yeah. So I think I dragged it too much. So you can drag it a bit out, and it depending on what you want to do. On the main pie, see, yeah, you can separate it out. I think I just wanted to drag just one bit, maybe just a bit out. Yeah. So depending on what you want to see, you can actually manipulate it to fit what you're doing. And the other thing, the other pie is you can also create a bar of a pie, which is I would select the data again and insert. I'll go to charts, all charts, pie, and it's a bar of a pie. Okay. And this is just a bar chart beside a pie. I don't know if we did, I don't think we did bar chart, but it's just like the other charts. See. Is this clear?
Yes, I suppose.
Okay. I think the main thing with charts is to practice. It's just to try your hands on different elements, different charts, and see what you will come up with. Sometimes, if the information is too much, a chart might not be the best way to present it. If you have so many variants to the information, so you pick the one that really works and actually, delivers the message you're trying to pass across. Because sometimes it might be like a pie chart that will do that. Sometimes it might be a bar chart. Sometimes it might be a combination, a combo chart, which is a combination of, like two types of charts. Let's say if we change this to like a combo chart design, let's say change chart type. So we have combo, let's say. So this is like a combination of column and line charts. So depending on the information you want to pass across, you might decide to do different charts. Do we have any questions on charts?
If you are practicing, where do you get the data from to practice with? Like you can extract the data maybe from an existing data you've got. For some of us, we don't have data we can extract like this to work with, except to create one.
If you go to Google,
Okay.
and just type like a data sample for charts, for instance,
Okay.
you get data. And you can also create it yourself. You can create something yourself. So you can get like loads of data, random data. I mean, you can just download data and just practice with it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. This
question. So sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
What of the combo charts? How do we do primary and secondary axis in such a way that if the axis and the information are different, so if one is 1,000 to 10,000 and the other one is from 10,000 to 100,000, how do we do in such a way that we have
on your axis?
Yes, primary and secondary axis, kind of.
So you want two sets of data on your axis?
Yeah, I want combo. So the combo, like you said, the combo chart, right? But I want the axis labels to be different, even if it's bar chart or whatever.
Your axis, you only have one axis. But your combo chart, you can get the data from, you can select the data from somewhere else. So depending on the data you're feeding in, that is what will determine the outcome of your chart. So for this one, if you change the data, your data source, that will determine what your chart will look like. But your axis will still remain.
Please, can I ask, why do we need to have a combo chart?
You don't necessarily need to have a combo chart. It depends on what you're doing. If what you're doing, if you need a combo chart for what you're doing, maybe you're trying to present two different things, then you can use a combo chart. You don't necessarily need a combo chart.
Okay.
It all depends on what you're trying to present. So for instance, maybe you're presenting you're presenting quantity and you're presenting the amount. So you can use a combo chart to combine the two of them.
Exactly what I mean, ma. So if you are presenting quantity and the amount together on the same chart, that means quantity will be maybe 1, 2, 3, whatever.
Yeah, but it won't show. It will just be on your chart. It will be on the diagram. It won't show like on the side. But it's something to explore. You can, if we have the data, I can look for a data, and maybe I'll bring it next week to show what we can do with the combo charts.
Okay, no problem. Fine.
I can look for a data that will better represent a combo chart.
No problem. That's fine.
So this is where we're going to stop today. If you please practice your pivots, your charts, and then next week we're going to be looking at lookups. So we're going to be looking at lookups, how to look up data from one data set to the other. We'll be looking at VLOOKUPs. We'll be looking at HLOOKUP. We'll look at XLOOKUP. We'll look at index and match, depending on our time, next week. So if you have any questions before next week, if you send them, if you note them, if you send them along, then we can look at it next week. If there's anything unclear next week, then we'll look at it together. Thanks for attending today. Sorry?
I may say, are you an Excel guru? Excel guru.
I would say I'm an Excel user. I don't know about guru.
Okay.
Excel is so wide.
So wide, yeah, I know.
It is really, really wide. I am still learning a lot. And the thing with Excel is you might learn something today. If you don't use it, you forget it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm an Excel user. I use Excel every day in my work.
Okay.
I won't say I'm an Excel guru. I still have a long way to go. So I'm still learning a lot.
Okay. And
but
it's
you
good
tend
to manipulate data the way you showed us here.
Yeah, but
and for presentation as well.
Yeah, but it makes it, depending on your type of work, for data, if you're working with data, you need Excel. No matter how good a system you have, everybody says, oh, we're coming up with this fantastic system. You don't have to use Excel. But at the end of the day, Excel has been consistent all along. And you still find out that there are some things that, the system is fixed and you can't do it, but you need to take the data out of the system so that you can manipulate the data to achieve what you want. So Excel is quite flexible, which is why I like it.
I agree, ma.
Thanks.
So we're all learning. We're all learning together.
The word on its own.
Yeah. It's a system on its own. Yeah. But please practice, because if you don't do it, then you won't remember. So there are things that I've learned before in the past that because I haven't used them, I have to go back and learn them. Okay. And if I still don't use them, I will still forget.
Okay.
So I would
encouragement.
You can get the video of this class as soon as possible.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the admin is recording, so they would send it to you.
All right.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now.